Kunzelsau, Baden-Württemberg, 1954. A town of 4,000 people, half-timbered houses, a church steeple that is the tallest thing for miles, and farmland rolling out in every direction. In a cramped back room of a family home, wooden bins line the walls, each one filled with screws sorted by size. Slotted heads, hex heads, wood screws, machine screws, each bin hand-labeled in pencil. There is a single wooden desk, a rotary telephone, brown paper for wrapping orders, and the smell of metal and oil that never quite leaves the air. A 19-year-old stands in this room. His father is dead. The business his father started 9 years earlier has one employee, annual revenue that company records place at roughly 80,000 Deutsche Marks, and a customer list you could fit on a single sheet of paper. The 19-year-old does not go to university. He does not sell the inventory and find a job. He picks up a sample case full of screws, walks out the door, and begins what will become a 70-year campaign to put a fastener in the hand of every tradesman in Europe. His name is Reinhold Wirth. You have almost certainly never heard it. But the car you drove this morning, the chair you are sitting in, the walls around you right now, they are held together by screws and bolts and anchors that may well have passed through a supply chain he built. His company does over $20 billion a year in revenue. He employs 87,000 people across more than 80 countries. Forbes has estimated his fortune at north of $10 billion. And he made every cent of it, selling the most unglamorous product in the history of commerce. This is not a story about a genius invention. Reinhold Wirth never patented a screw. He never engineered a better bolt. He did not start from nothing. He inherited a functioning microenterprise with an existing product and an existing, if tiny, customer base. What he did was something that most business schools would have said was impossible. He took a commodity so basic that no one thinks about it and built one of the largest private commercial empires on earth without ever taking a dollar of outside money, without ever selling a single share to the public, and without ever making a product that a consumer would recognize by name. The innovation was not in the screw. It was in how the screw got from the bin to the hand. To understand what Reinhold Wirth walked into at 19, you have to understand post-war southwestern Germany. The Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle fueled by Marshall Plan dollars and Ludwig Erhard's market reforms, was real, but it was concentrated in industrial corridors. The Ruhr Valley, Stuttgart's auto plants, Hamburg's ports. The Hohenlohe region where Kunzelsau sits was none of those things. It was agricultural, conservative, quiet. Reinhold's father, Adolf Wirth, had founded a wholesale screw business in 1945, in the chaos of post-war supply chains, when anyone who could source basic industrial materials and deliver them had a market. Adolf traded screws he bought from regional manufacturers and sold them to local craftsmen. It was a modest living. It was not a launch pad. Reinhold had been working in the business since he was 14. He loaded screws, he made deliveries, he learned the catalog, learned the customers, learned the rhythm of a trade that ran on small orders, thin margins, and personal trust. When his father died, there was no succession plan, no board of advisors, no capital reserve. There was a teenager, a room full of screws, and a question. What now? The answer came fast, and it came from the road. Wirth's single most consequential decision, the one everything else flows from, was to build a direct sales force. In 1954, the European fastener trade worked the way it had worked for decades. Craftsmen came to the wholesaler, or they ordered from a catalog. The wholesaler waited. Wirth refused to wait. He packed a sample case, leather or pressed cardboard, heavy, compartmented with different screw types, and he went to the workshops himself. carpentry shops with wood shavings on the floor, metalworking shops with a single bench and hand tools on the walls, construction sites where the foreman had 15 minutes and no patience. Wirth showed up, opened the case, and asked questions. What are you working on? What fasteners are you using? What problems are you having with your current supplier? He did not just sell screws. He solved problems. If a carpenter needed a specific fastener for an unusual application, Wirth would source it or suggest an alternative. If a plumber's regular supplier was unreliable on delivery, Wirth made sure his delivery was on time. Every time. He turned a commodity transaction into a consulting relationship. The craftsman did not just get a box of screws. He got a young man who knew more about fastener applications than the craftsman did, who showed up on schedule, who remembered what you ordered last month. This was not how the wholesale hardware trade worked. The conventional wisdom said you competed on price, you served your local area, and you accepted modest returns. Wirth competed on relationship. And then he did something that turned a local advantage into a continental strategy. He hired other people to do exactly what he did. By the early 1960s, the company had grown from one employee to several dozen, most of them field salespeople trained in Wirth's consultative model. Revenue crossed 1 million Deutsche Marks in 1962, an eightfold increase in 8 years. By 1969, it reached 28 million. Every mark of growth was organic. No loans, no investors, no acquisitions. Just more salespeople covering more territory, carrying more sample cases into more workshops, building more relationships, one handshake at a time. Think about that growth rate for a moment. A screw wholesaler in a rural German town, growing at a pace that would make a Silicon Valley venture capitalist take notice, and doing it with a product that has not fundamentally changed since the Industrial Revolution. The product catalog tells the deeper story. In the 1950s, Wirth's catalog was a thin pamphlet, typewritten, mimeographed, with hand-drawn product illustrations. By the 1970s, it was professionally printed, dense with text, running to dozens of pages. By the 1990s, it was a bound volume rivaling a phone book in heft, listing over 100,000 products. Because Wirth had figured out the most elegant logic in wholesale commerce. Once your salesman is in the workshop, sell the craftsman everything he needs. He started with screws. Then he sold the drill bits to drive them. Then the power tools. Then the hand tools, the toolbox, the safety goggles, the adhesives, the sealants, the anchors, the dowels, the personal protective equipment. A carpenter who started buying wood screws from Wirth in 1965 was, by 1985, buying his entire supply kit from the same salesman who showed up every 2 weeks like clockwork. Cross-selling on this scale, sustained across decades, is what transformed Wirth from a screw wholesaler into a comprehensive trade supply company. Revenue crossed 100 million Deutsche Marks in 1975, a billion by 1985, 5 billion by 1994. And through all of it, every doubling, every new country entered, every product line added, Reinhold Wirth refused to do the one thing that every investment banker, every financial advisor, every MBA case study said he should do. He refused to go public. The logic, as he articulated it across decades of interviews, was deceptively simple. Public shareholders want returns every quarter. Building what he was building required thinking in decades. Every pfennig of profit went back into the business, hiring more salespeople, opening more distribution points, expanding the catalog, entering new markets. No public shareholder would accept that reinvestment rate for 20 years. No quarterly earnings call would tolerate the patience his model demanded. Going public would have given him capital. It would have cost him the company. Wall Street would have called him crazy. He was worth more than most public CEOs when the math was done. Instead, in 1987, he transferred ownership of the company to a family foundation, the Wirth Stiftung. This was a structure common in German Mittelstand culture, designed to separate the company from direct family ownership and create governance that would outlast any individual. It removed the possibility of a hostile takeover, eliminated the pressure of public markets, and, this matters, and scholars debate it, provided significant tax advantages under German foundation law. Whether the foundation structure was principled stewardship or sophisticated tax optimization is a question that honest analysts answer with both. The company today is the empire that patience built. Over 400 companies across more than 80 countries, revenue exceeding 20 billion euros, 87,000 employees. And at the heart of it still, the direct sales force. Over 33,000 salespeople visiting clients at their workplaces every day. One of the largest sales armies on earth. They sell screws. Now here is the part of the story that breaks the pattern. Somewhere in the 1960s, while he was still personally hauling sample cases into workshops, Reinhold Wirth started buying art. Modestly at first, a painting here, a print there. But as the business grew, the collection grew with it. And what it grew into defies everything you think you know about a man who sells fasteners for a living. The Wirth collection today holds over 18,000 works of art. Picasso, Munch, Anselm Kiefer, David Hockney, Max Beckmann, Christo. This is not a corporate vanity collection of safe landscapes hung in boardroom corridors. This is a collection that rivals national museums in scope and seriousness. And he gave it away. Not to a private gallery with a membership fee, not to a prestige institution in Berlin or Munich. He built dedicated museums, the Kunsthalle Wirth in the medieval town of Schwäbisch Hall, the Museum Wirth in Künzelsau itself, others in Berlin and beyond, and made entry free. Walk in off the street. Look at a Picasso. It costs you nothing. In a small Swabian town that most people will never visit, a screw salesman built a world-class art museum and opened the doors to anyone. Wirth has said that art was a necessary counterpoint to the relentless pragmatism of the screw business, that without it, the commercial world becomes spiritually barren. You can read that as genuine conviction or as a rich man's self-justification. What you cannot dispute is the collection itself, which is real, which is extraordinary, and which is free. But a life built on control does not release control easily, and the Wirth story has its fractures. Reinhold formally stepped back from operational management in 1994, handing CEO duties to professional managers. He remained chairman of the supervisory board of the family trusts. His actual withdrawal from decision-making was gradual, partial, and, according to German business press coverage that stretched across the 2000s, contested. His daughter, Bettina Wirth, took over as chair of the advisory board and became the continuity figure for the next generation. His son, Marcus, left the company. Court disputes between family members over governance of the foundation structure were documented in the business press. The full details remain private, but the outline is a familiar one. A patriarch who built everything, struggling to let anyone else touch it. The German business magazine, Manager Magazine, ran a cover story characterizing the situation plainly. A man who had spent 50 years in total command of an empire he created from a room full of screws could not fully let go. Whether you read that as a flaw or as the inevitable cost of the temperament that built the thing in the first place depends on how much sympathy you have for the people around him. Both readings are probably true. Here is what you should sit with. Reinhold Wirth did not invent anything. He did not discover anything. He did not disrupt an industry with technology. He took a commodity product, a product so mundane that it is invisible in daily life. And he applied one idea to it with more discipline, more patience, and more relentless consistency than anyone else in the history of the trade. The idea was simple. Go to the customer. Know what they need better than they do. Show up on time. Sell them everything. Reinvest every cent. Think in decades. He started working at 14. He took over the company at 19. He never went to university, never earned an MBA, never sat through a business school lecture. His education was 10,000 workshop visits and a sample case that got heavier every year. Hermann Simon, the business scholar who coined the term hidden champions for mid-sized German companies that achieve global market leadership while remaining invisible to consumers, has cited Wirth as paradigmatic, the hidden champion of hidden champions, a company virtually unknown to anyone who does not work with their hands for a living, dominating a market that most people do not know exists. If you have ever watched a carpenter drive a screw into framing lumber, you have watched the endpoint of a supply chain that one man in a small German town spent 70 years building. The screw itself is unremarkable. Self-tapping, zinc-plated crosshead. It costs a few cents. It holds a wall together. It was delivered by a salesman who showed up at the job site on Tuesday because that is when he always shows up, carrying a catalog of 100,000 products and the direct phone number of a distribution center that can have anything on site by morning. That salesman is one of 33,000. The distribution center is one of hundreds. The catalog is digital now, but the relationship is the same one Reinhold Wirth built when he was 19 and carrying a leather case down a dirt road in the Hohenlohe. $20 billion a year, 87,000 employees, 400 companies, 18,000 works of art, free to anyone who walks through the door. And the man who built it started with a room full of screws and a father who did not live to see what his son would do with them. The next time you tighten a screw, in a cabinet hinge, a door frame, a loose chair leg, hold it for a second before you drive it in. Feel the threads, the weight, the small, ordinary, unremarkable object that holds the physical world together. You are holding the economy that one man spent a lifetime building. You just never knew his